AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said, when
Top of the morning,
out.
Dan and Amy. That theme song means it's time for our weekly confab with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois and Chicago, because Chicago's included in Illinois,
Yes,
policy related. New report they did on the CTA. If you want a reminder as to why you shouldn't vote for Lori Lightfoot today, all you have to do is take the CTA to the polling place. I mean, if you can survive that CTA ride to a nearby polling place. The top line, I'll let Ted break it down, but pre-pandemic versus last year, ridership is down and
Crime is up?
Violent crime is up
Hey!
in aggregate terms, not as a percentage of ridership either, just in aggregate terms. And the ridership, as you may surmise, is down considerably. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so you looked at what's going on the trains and buses. I don't think CTA has planes yet, maybe someday. What's happened 2019 to 2020 on the CTA?
Well, you have to understand that on the CTA and on Metro, on everything, right, we've had this massive collapse of ridership, 50% down. So, we looked at the ridership, we looked at the mileage, people riding, it's massively down. And yet violent crimes were up. So, if you go back to 2019, you had about, again, it's 900 violent crimes, and you have another, 14% increase in 2022. And this is after Lightfoot's initiatives. They've done a beat down. I think you've covered it on the CTA chief. And yet, you had 2 murders back in 2019. You had 9 murders in 2022. That's, of course, the scary one. But the hard part to understand is, how do you have such a collapse where the system's empty most of the time? And maybe that's an argument for why you have more crime. I don't know. But the system's empty a lot of the time, and yet you had even more violent crimes than you did in 2019. And that just speaks to the whole problem we've talked about. And you covered it very well with Matt Rosenberg, our guy covering this. And this crime in Chicago, we've led the nation in murders for 11 straight years. And I didn't know that until we did that report. 11 straight years where we're number one. We have 5 times the murder rate of New York City. 5 times. When you look at it on a per capita basis. We've got a 5% arrest rate for all these major crimes. It's a mess. And, the sad part is, I don't see any of that changing with this election overall.
Well, really, you don't see one.
Flat.
Sorry for interrupting, but you don't see one candidate out there that would change this, or at least, at least get to Kim.
Do you have a name you'd like to volunteer?
Well, it's not throwing out 1,000 more police. You got to get to Kim Foxx. You got to get to the criminal system.
Well,
that's what has
Amy,
to.
you hit the point.
Change.
They all. The biggest thing they'll all say is more police on the street, if they say that at all, and that's fine. But that's like saying put more money in CPS. Right? I mean, you can dump as much money as you want in CPS. It doesn't matter. It's a failed system. It won't work. So you can put more cops on the street, but if they're demoralized and know that they're at risk of doing anything, they'll never do anything. So you're spending more money for the same thing. Whoever leads has to strongly attack Kim Foxx, strongly attack Tim Evans, strongly push back against the Safety Act. And I haven't heard one of those guys or gals say that. And so I think overall it's really, and this won't happen until we hit a new point. We're not there yet. And I think that person from San Francisco, the wealthy guy, Michael Moritz, who wrote that piece, until you get enough Chicagoans sick of what's happening, and we're nowhere near that yet, we're not going to have change. And it has to be that you're against this kind of equity, social justice type leadership and into one where merit and competency matter again. And we're nowhere near that.
I went to an event yesterday with the CFO of the state of Florida. Florida is interesting in the way their state government works. They have 4 cabinet level officers that are elected: the CFO, the ag commissioner, the attorney general, the governor, and then there's subordinate agencies under each cabinet official. But anyway, so the CFO of the state of Florida, which is just an interesting concept in and of itself, to have a formal CFO, comptroller, treasurer that we have, and the bifurcated but somewhat redundant responsibilities. And anyway, the CFO, the state of Florida, sitting on $20 billion in cash reserves, a AAA bond rating. They have the highest cash reserves they've ever had in the state's history.
Wow.
AAA bond rating. So could I mean, just generally speaking, can you compare and contrast that with where we are now, including under Governor Jelly Belly, since he is trying to make himself relevant nationally by hitting DeSantis, as frankly are all the mayoral candidates over the last couple of weeks too?
Yeah, I mean, think about that if you're talking to a potential investor who wants to build a car plant or any kind of facility, and you can say that you're AAA rated, you're very well run, your population has grown by whatever it is, 4 million in the last decade or whatever the number was. It gives you a lot of power saying, come here. You don't have to worry about taxes going crazy on your investment, like Warren Buffett warned about Illinois. You can be successful here, or you can go to Illinois, which is the lowest rated state in the country. Was nearly junk rated. It hasn't done anything about these massive pension debts, and somebody's going to have to pay them off if there's no reform. It's shrinking. I mean, this is what Pritzker wants us to believe, that he's competitive vis-a-vis Florida, and it's just so wrong. And then you see these things like Stellantis yesterday saying they're going to shutter the plant in Belvedere. It's everything is going the wrong way, and yet somebody like Pritzker tries to present a pretty picture, and it's just dishonest. It's a dishonest assessment of where we are.
Yeah, he's trying to get electronic vehicle manufacturers here. That's his big push.
Well, I tell you that if he's trying that, it's a big failure so far. And the legislature gave him a $400 million slush fund to hand out to get somebody to come here, but he's 0 for 18 in trying to get these EV battery or manufacturing plants, and with the way things are going, it's going to be even tougher for him.
But also, too, I mean, I know we talked about this before, and this is like green eye shade stuff that a lot of people don't care about, understand, worry about. But, I mean, if you put it in a business context, to people that actually can read a balance sheet and have to abide a bottom line, it means something. But, I mean, just even the AAA bond rating in Florida versus our bond rating, and so paying 1.5 less on interest to borrow. I mean, that is real money that's just being wasted because we're a profligate state. For all these people about, pour more money into this and pour more money into that, and the money should be going here and money should be going there. Meanwhile, they're paying they're paying 21% interest on their maxed out credit card.
Yeah, I mean that's really, okay. So yes, bad credit rating means it's like anybody who's got a bad credit score. You pay a ton more on your debt if you're trying to buy a car or a house. But I think what's really the most significant thing about that difference in credit rating is AAA means you're really well run. You are a place of reputation. You're good. And when you're at the bottom, when you have the lowest credit rating, if you have the lowest credit score, kind of means you're kind of, you're risky. You're not a well-run place. You're right. Kind of a fiscal bum. So, and that means a lot more because that's about investment and attracting people and companies.
The only sort of, you try to look for green shoots. They're difficult to find in Chicago and Illinois, but there is some evidence that school choice is still gaining in popularity. And it's now essentially a majority viewpoint, even in the city of Chicago, even with an electorate that is so committed to self-harm as the Chicago electorate. Enough of a constituency has been built, and word has gotten around based on the real world experience, that school choice is something that is here to stay. Is that your read?
Yeah, I would say that's my read. And I tell you, this stuff I've been doing, been in this policy world for about 15 years. And what's been fascinating the last 3 weeks was how much attention has been given to the failure schools. When we put out that information about, first of all, those empty schools, empty failing schools that are in Chicago, and then we followed it up with the not a single kid can read in these X schools in Chicago and Illinois. The national attention we've gotten on that has been phenomenal, and a lot of that, of course, was here in Illinois. I think people are becoming awake to the fact that it's a failed system, right? We keep saying the same numbers over and over. Just 1 out of 10 CPS kids can read at grade level, right? And there's 1 out of 20 for math. How can that be? And the more that we can get that message out, the more then that there has to be a different solution. They can't just be throwing more money in. And as we learn, as that nearby states, Indiana's got school choice. Iowa's putting in this massive school choice. Milwaukee's had it for a long time. Wisconsin's had it for a long time. We're going to be, again, surrounded by school choice states. We're going to be the odd ones out. And given the results we have and how much we spend, we're odd on both of those, right? We're extreme outliers on how much we spend and how bad we are. It's going to be a huge opportunity, Dan. I think the school choice is, maybe the one that we use to break the back of all this control that they have at CPS and at the state level.
Do you have any theory or prediction as it relates to Amendment 1 and when Illinois will start feeling the impact of Amendment 1?
Well, we put out a piece. I think the biggest impact that's going to be felt is in property taxes in the first stage. And that's because all these school contracts are negotiated every 3, 4, 5 years. And so the first school contracts that are being renegotiated start sometime in the middle of this year, and then they kick in over the next year and a half, something like 300 or 400 contracts. And every one of those, you can bet that it won't just be that they want more money to cover, the inflation and COVID risks and all that. They're going to put in all kinds of additional things on the way you're looking at all these books that they're reading and the sex ed. They're going to call it safety for teachers and safety for kids and put them in the contracts. So I think it's going to start showing up there the most. And if there's a chance in the surround schools again and a chance for parents to say no way, that's going to be it. Now the question is that the mover in Illinois finally, like the Virginia movement? I don't know, but Amendment 1 is the worst bill we've ever had. And at some point, it's going to have to be unwound. It's just a question of, does it take, 10 years, 20 years? But along with pensions, it's going to bring down Illinois. It's just a question of how fast it happens and whether people react to it sooner than later.
Well, you'll be there to document it because, of course, very few people in this state are able to connect any dots or make much of an effort to. So you're going to have to connect them for them, and that's what Wirepoints.org does. Ted Dabrowski, President at Wirepoints.org. Thanks so much, as always.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to